grab your favorite beverage, kick up your feet as you ascend with me into the joy portal of soul reflections, fresh perspectives, fun ideas, and wisdom. Light to light and heart to heart. Smile and breathe even deeper as together we will soar above the perception of all hurdles and shine brightly as the light we are. Namaste and welcome to Light, Laughter, and Lattes. My name is Geri Habstritt. I'm an Avesa quantum healer, Self-Ascension intuitive counselor, medical intuitive, and your friend and soul connection for the next hour. So today on this beautiful new moon, I am with Kylie Sayer, or Kai, from Boise, Idaho, and she owns or operates her business called Ancient Evolution. She is an energy guide, and her specialty is in helping people with transition. And also she's a death doula, which is very interesting to me. I've met many birth doulas, but never a death doula. So this is really exciting. And I find it fascinating that I'm interviewing her on a new moon. It kind of seems like we've got opposite things going on here, and it's very serendipitous. So, hi Kylie, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and it's fun to do this live. Usually I'm working with people via Zoom and not in person, so this is fun. We get more of an energetic interaction as opposed to talking into a computer, which is not nearly as much fun. So I love going into people's stories. You're not just a death doula. You probably at a younger age knew that you were a little bit different maybe than everyone else. And so how did you know?
I've always been a very sensitive person. I've always been very in tune to the spiritual world and those realms. Ever since I was a small child, that's always just kind of been a part of my reality. But it wasn't until I was in my adult life that I really started tapping into and exploring and expanding my intuitive gifts. I very much went through what I guess you could call like a spiritual awakening process, which is never as pleasant as people like to make it sound. There was a lot of, during like my Saturn return, the later years of the 20s and early 30s, there was a lot of shift, a lot of change in my life, and that was sort of the catalyst for my spiritual gifts to expand and grow into my awareness. So it's been interesting.
So would you say it was like, was it a dark night?
Absolutely. Yes. So I went through a divorce. I went through, and then I met my current husband. We started a family together. And I think the most difficult part of that whole transition was I lost a baby during pregnancy. And that sent me into a very, very kind of dark night of the soul period of time. But it was also in that time where I started having these, I guess you could call them epiphanies, just these really strong and profound messages from spirit. And one of them that just kind of rocked me to my core told me that I needed to drastically shift my life path. So at that time in my life, I was working for corporate America. I was in a cubicle doing the corporate thing, and I hadn't ever really thought anything different about it. Like it was fine up until that moment, and then it really felt like somebody just hit me over the top of the head and said, nope, you need to go to school to become a massage therapist, which I had never thought of a single moment before then. It never even crossed my mind. But it was so strong that I immediately was like, okay. And within a month, I had found a school. I had quit my job. I had enrolled. My husband probably thought I was crazy because I was just like, this is what we're doing now. But He's wonderful and just kind of rolled with the punches there. And it was really when I was I went to an academy called Three Oaks Academy. It was very, it dealt a lot with like the anatomy and the physiology and kinesiology of massage, but also in the spiritual sense too. There was a lot of yoga and qigong and meditation and a lot of spiritual practices that went hand in hand with my schooling there. And it was really in that space that I kind of learned a lot of the terminology that I just didn't have words for before. That's where I learned the term empath, which, my whole life I've known, I'm very sensitive. I knew that I could pick up on other people's emotions and that I could feel what other people were feeling, but I never had that word before. I couldn't put a name on it. And when I could do that, finally, it just kind of opened up this huge world for me where I started to finally feel like I could fit in. Like I was starting to find kind of like my place in the world. And, as I progressed through my schooling and started tapping into those parts of myself spiritually and getting in touch with my body and the energy of my body and my own spirit, I started having third eye awakenings. And so I'd be working with somebody, in like a massage session, and I would start having visions and start seeing things. And intuitively I knew that, what I was seeing were parts of that person's energy or their past lives or, things that they had experienced in this life. And that was a little bit overwhelming for me because I had never seen things that clearly before. And so I found a psychic mentor that I mentored with for about a year in the valley here that really helped me to tap in and hone my abilities and to use them in a way that was not overwhelming and that felt comfortable and stable and grounded for me. And it's been quite the journey since then. I've kind of transitioned from massage into, this intuitive transition work where I, really work a lot with people who are in the middle of major life transitions. I've done that for several years, and it's really powerful and important work, I feel. And then within the last year, I have felt really strongly to be called to kind of branch out into this death doula work. And so I studied and became a certified death doula. And in my practice there, I help people who are, in the grief of having lost a loved one. And I also work with people who are in hospice and are moving into that last transition of life and preparing their spirit and their body and their soul for death and to move out of this physical reality. So it's been an interesting kind of transition, but it's been a beautiful one, and I feel lucky to be where I am today. So
my sense is, being a death doula, you also, every time you say it, I get this strong, energetic, like, yes, that's what you are. You feel like you have this energy about you that also can assist people through their own rebirthing process.
Uh-huh.
So like anyone who's ready to maybe die to an old way, mm-hmm. and they're going to get ready to rebirth themselves, that your energy assists them to do that as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly the type of work that I do with the transition healing that I do. Because most of the time the people that come to me are in a phase of deep change, mm-hmm. And that is always a sign of an old part of us being shed or dying off, and a new part of us emerging and growing, and that can feel very disorienting for people. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to kind of guide them through that process and help them tap into their own healing power is just it's amazing. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it just feels so wonderful to be able to support other people in that way.
And the beauty is, because I've gone through numerous rebirths and deaths and dark nights, mm-hmm. and all of that, all of what appears to be the bad stuff, all the stuff that's hard, that hurts, that's painful, there's always a rebirth around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how hard it is to move through, there's like brighter light on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's hard, it's incredibly exciting. I mean, I'm to the point now where it's, when I feel a sense of fear in me, I get excited.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yes,
Yeah.
my ego's going to have to let go again. And there's going to be something even better when I just got to, fear shouldn't be a door. It should be just it should be a doorway, right? You pass through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it feels like? There it is again, just passing through.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard the term for that also being called the magic dark, because it is the dark night of the soul, but there is so much magic there that, and especially as you emerge out of that, exactly like what you're saying, you come out a better version of yourself, a newer version of yourself, somebody that's expanded and evolved a little bit. And and that's why I called my business Ancient Evolution, because I help people as they evolve.
Sure.
It's a really magical place to be, even though sometimes it's hard and difficult and feels really yucky when you're in there.
Yeah, right.
It's powerful.
So what are some of the main things you use to help people when they come to you and they're in that space?
It differs, it changes for every single person, because we are all so incredibly unique. When I am in session with somebody, I call in like my spiritual team, and they truly are the ones to guide me. So I usually am I feel like I'm just a tool for spirit to be able to talk to that person. A lot of the times it's helping people move through their shadow and kind of understanding what that shadow is trying to show them or teach them. And sometimes it's helping people get into their body, because a lot of times when we're moving through a transition period and it's difficult and it's hard and it's painful and it just hurts, our spirit doesn't want to be in that spot, or our ego doesn't want to be in that spot, and so our energy gets too far out of the body. And so a lot of times what I do is I help people come back into the body where they can ground and feel more stable and secure. But with that also comes, they've got to work through that pain and that grief and that sorrow of whatever it is that they're transitioning out of. There are lots of different tools that I talk to people about, and it really just depends on where they're at in their process. It could be journaling, it could be physical movement, it could be meditation, it could be singing, it could be emotional release, it could be screaming their anger, whatever it takes to move that energy through their body. Because I think a lot of times, especially in our culture now, we are not shown how to move through sorrow or grief or difficult transitions. And so what we do is we bottle it up and we hold it. We hold it tight inside of our body, and we don't show that we're in pain, or we don't show that we're suffering. And what happens energetically is that gets stuck. That energy gets stuck in our body and it never leaves until we move it out, right?
Right.
And so being able to help people learn how to move that out of their body is a big part of the practice too.
Right. Well, and I work a lot. That's what I mostly work with, is people's stuck emotions, tracking it where it is, and let's go in and get it out through EFT or something else. But when I got tired of doing EFT on me, and I've done a lot of it on me, there's times where you just have a big emotional surge and you know what it is, and EFT is not necessary, but you need to release it. Yeah. And I think generations before us, it wasn't okay. You're either a bitch if you're a female and you yell it out. And men don't typically show their feelings, but maybe it'll come out in other ways. I mean, maybe sports and things, but it was a generation of not understanding to move it, more or less lock it in, because it's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to be, and anger is a normal emotion. Oh, yeah. All it is unmet expectations, and who doesn't have expectations?
Exactly.
Especially if you're raised in a family that is unkind when you're young. I mean, there's always an expectation that your family place is going to be safe, or nourishing, and it's not always the case.
Right.
And so one of the things that I've always used is going in my car, turning on the music, driving, and screaming as loud as I can. Usually I'm in an apartment, and that's not going to work. and have you ever been in the place where you really have to release, and you're like, where can I go?
Yeah.
You go to a park, and you're like, well, I can't scream here.
Yeah.
There's not places put aside. I would love to see a world someday where there's a place put aside, just for release.
I would love that too.
Now, the funny thing is I ran into a man. He was actually the repair guy for copy machines at Office Max, and for whatever reason we got talking about this, and he tells me that there's a hotel in China with really cheap furniture and stuff in it where people literally check in there because the stress levels are so great that you go into a room and you trash it. You pick up the furniture, you throw it.
Wow.
and the whole hotel is designed just for that.
Yeah.
For a place of release.
That's actually pretty amazing. I think that anger can be such a strong catalyst for that energy to move out of your body. Like if anybody is like, I feel like I need to throw something, I'm always like, go throw it, pick up that plate and throw it if you feel like you need to, in a safe space. But you're so right. Like the ability to just scream or vocally express our emotion is probably one of the most powerful ways for us to do that and to have that emotional release. I think that a lot of times our voice is sort of played down, but I think that out of, all of our power centers, our voice is one of the most important and powerful ones because it's the center for us to express and move out emotion, and also for us to pull in the manifestation that we want to, draw into our life. The more that I learn and study about like the throat chakra, the more I'm just like, this is such a powerful center. And I feel like we don't give it as much, a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people don't give it as much attention as it needs to. And maybe that's just kind of our culture, is we're taught to, be quiet and not speak up. And, if you are loud, then that's wrong or bad. And I absolutely don't feel like that is the case. I think that there's so much power and strength and healing that can happen when we express ourselves vocally. I use a lot of like chanting and sometimes even singing in my practice because it's so powerful to do that over a person or to be that voice for them when they can't, or they feel like they can't tap into that part of themselves at that moment. Yeah.
Well, and the throat is so much more. I think typically it's called the throat chakra, but from even a higher perspective, it's the truth chakra. So that's why it is so powerful. It's about living our truth, not only speaking it, but like you being the death doula, that's for sure an aspect of your truth. And so not only is it knowing it, but it's expressing it as well. So actually, hey, this is mine. This is what I know I'm good at. And now I'm going to go out and do it. And that alone will help assist people to open their throat chakras up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with the chanting and those kind of things as well. So I had this great idea when you said throw the plate, because there's nothing more satisfying, I think, when you're angry and you have something that shatters and you can toss it and watch it shatter. So I had this idea that someday I wanted to have a healing room, but I wanted a separate room next to it that's like soundproof, and people could bring all their old china or whatever, right? Their old plates. And then next door to it would be like a mosaic place, an art place. And so you could stand in there and just, you rotten, throw them all one by one. And then you go sweep up all the pieces. You bring them next door.
Yeah.
And they turn it into art.
You create something
Just
new.
transmute it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a wonderful idea. I like that a lot.
So I'm thinking at the end, you do new moon circles, right? Do you do full moon circles too, or just new moon?
I do. So we do we have a service. It's called Moonlight Sisterhood. Is the group that we have, and it's myself and 2 other women, and we host new moon circles and full moon circles, and then I do sort of like an astrology class and meditation class in between each of the new and full moons. So there's something that's offered once a week every month of the year. It's really beautiful.
So like when we get to the end of our interview, close to the end, since we are on the new moon, would you mind doing a little new moon meditation?
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
I didn't warn you about this, so this is totally impromptu. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, is there anything that you would really like to share about what you do?
I think that, like, in the context of the death doula work that I do, I love to talk about that, and I think that talking about it can be so powerful, because oftentimes the topic of death and dying is very much shied away from. People don't, it's uncomfortable. People don't like to talk about it because it's not honored in our culture the way that it used to be. You know, we have our elders and we put them in facilities or hospitals, and it's taken out of the nurturing place of the home, and the family doesn't want to, not always, but sometimes, you know, the family doesn't want to have to care for, you know, somebody that is moving through the dying process, or they don't understand like how beautiful it can be sometimes. And like I said, everybody's different, you know, and relationships are all different, but I love talking about that because there's so much beauty and power that we can tap into when we are present with somebody that is moving through that final stage. We can pull in that power for them and be that support system for them, but oftentimes I've noticed that the people that are there get just as much or more out of it in their own growth, you know, through that process as well. Being a conscious witness and holding space for somebody that's moving through something as difficult as death is really beautiful, and I would love to see that become more of a norm in our culture, and to see the taboo aspects of that kind of fading away or being taken out in American culture, at least. I know there are lots of different cultures around the world that really do a beautiful and wonderful job of honoring those last phases of life. But in America, I think we can do better. Yeah.
So what do you find yourself doing if someone calls you in? Do you usually get hired by family members?
Right now, I'm working with a hospital hospice team, and so I do. And for right now, it's just all volunteer.
Oh, okay.
It's not a paid. It's something that it's really truly like a passion project for me, and I want so much to be able to offer that service that right now I'm just doing it as a volunteer, because I just want to have that be available to people. And so anytime that there's the need or the desire from a family to have a support system in place like what I do, then they call me in, and I do a lot of what I call comforting touch. It's very similar to healing touch or Reiki or something like that, that is really beneficial for the person that's moving through the death phase. And so I go in there and I sit and I hold that space, and I hold that kind of conscious container for that person and their family members, and I just be there with them, you know. And sometimes it is more physical. I do, you know, some of the conscious touch and kind of help to move the energy, or just a lot of the times with somebody that's dying, their energy is very, very different. I'm not sure if you've ever tapped into somebody that's in that stage of of life?
I haven't been there. I've been around more births than I have deaths.
It's very interesting. It's to me it's fascinating because it's a very different energy than when somebody is vital and they're alive and they're kind of brimming with that life force, because that life force is leaving the body, and most of the time, unless it's something drastic, then it's a slower process. That life force is leaving the body in a slower way, and to be able to feel into that and feel where they're at within the process is really fascinating from like an intuitive perspective. I've had instances where I've been with, I was with my grandpa actually as he was transitioning, and I was at the hospital with him, and it was probably about 48 hours before his body fully died. And I could see intuitively, standing above him at the top of the bed, right by his head, just this huge angelic being. And they were doing very specific hand placements on the crown chakra, on his crown chakra. And I had the very distinct feeling like this being is allowing me to see this. Right. It's not an accidental thing that I'm able to see this happening right now. He very much allowed me the space to see what he was doing. And I got the sense that he was opening the crown chakra so that the spirit could fully leave the body. And within, and I, went and sat with him often, and, every day a little bit more of his life force and his spirit would transition out, and that angelic being stayed with him through the entire process, which is really a beautiful thing to see and to just know, like, I think sometimes people can have a fear of death because they don't know what it's like, and to be able to see like there are beings on the other side that are assisting with that all the time through the entire transition is really comforting and beautiful.
So have you had to help other beings go to the light? Because I know there is a lot of beings who are really attached to this third dimensional experience, and without assistance get trapped here and become what people would call a ghost. Right, and need assistance. Have you done any of that work where you've connected with some of these energies and opened up portals to assist them to?
I have done a little bit of that. I haven't done a whole lot of it. I have had experiences where there have been energies or spirits of people that have been alive before that have come into my awareness to help, they want to go somewhere else. And so I've helped them with that process. I have had, spirits of family members, ghosts, like, I don't like to use the word ghost very, very much, but the spirit of a family member who has passed has come to me before and wanted me to pass along messages to that person, so that they could feel more at ease and know that their loved ones are taken care of, and that they know that they love them, and that they're still, around, just in a different form. I have had, experiences like that before where I've done that work, but that's not the focus of what I do primarily. It doesn't happen very often for me. But if somebody comes to me, like if a spirit comes to me, I absolutely will help them.
What's your favorite part about working with death and transition?
I really love working with elders. There's something about the energy of somebody that has lived a long life, regardless of how they lived their life. Like, it's not my job to judge how they have lived their life. It's just my job to be present for them in the moment that they're at. And so one of my favorite aspects is just being there, just being that conscious witness, to just see and know, and to be able to say, like, I see where you're at, and I don't have any emotional attachment because they're not somebody that I have, they're not a family member or something like that. There's not that sort of relationship attachment. And so I can just purely hold space and say, you know, I see where you are, I see where you're going, I know, and it's okay. A lot of people do get that sort of have that fear of letting go, and sometimes they just need a permission, almost. Like it's okay, and to know that they're doing it right, because nobody ever really knows what death is like until you're actually doing it. And from what I have learned through my studies and from what I've experienced, it's very much like a labor. You know, it's very, very similar to birth in a lot of ways, especially if, you know, you're passing from old age or from, you know, a body illness like cancer or something like that. You're moving through a very similar process to the birth laboring, but it's the death laboring. You know, the body is doing very specific things, and oftentimes you can tell what phase a person is at based off what their body is doing. And a lot of times people are afraid of that because they just don't know. You know, we don't teach. A lot of people know, okay, like when you're in birth labor, these are the steps that are going to happen, but a lot of people don't know that about the death labor. And so being able to be a witness for that and to show people that it's okay and that their body and their soul just instinctually knows what to do and that they're doing it right. Like there's no wrong way to do it. I think that eases a lot of people's fear, and to just be able to hold that space for that person. That's definitely my favorite part.
So if you had a magic wand, which you do, it's invisible, and you could change the whole death process, how would you change it so it's a more beautiful experience?
Oh, I have thought about this a lot.
Have you? Oh, good. I'm glad I asked you.
I have. When you go through the education process of becoming a death doula, you think a lot about death and how it is in reality and how you would change it. I would really focus on bringing the holistic, loving, natural aspects back to the death and dying process. For me, it would be if all of the people involved were open and willing to we'll just imagine this is the perfect scenario, but right. To having the process being held within the family unit, you know, having the family caring for the person as they're moving through that, helping ease their pain and their fears, and opening up that place spiritually for, you know, the spirit to move through without any attachments or regrets, you know, to be able to allow that person to die peacefully and to know that they're loved and supported in every way. And then after the death process, I think that it's really important also the ritual of how we care for the physical vessel, you know. And so for me, I think it would be so beautiful to be able to have, you know, the body stay at home, have like a home funeral or a home wake or however you wanted to do it, and to have the family members and the loved ones have this space to be able to process and move through those initial few days of deep sorrow and grief. Because right now, generally in America, what happens is when somebody dies, they usually die in like a facility or a hospital or a nursing home or something like that. And then immediately the body is whisked away to either the coroner or to be embalmed or, you know, whatever. And then you don't see the body again until the viewing or the wake. And by that time, usually the body doesn't look much like the person as they did when they were alive. And so being able to just be with the physical vessel as it transitions through that sort of those, it's kind of like a 48-hour period, 2 or 3 day period, where you can really see and feel and touch and know on a very physical level, like, my loved one is no longer in this body, you know? And I think that can be very, very healing and very good for the healing process and the grieving process, because you can see the body start to change.
Right.
And I think that that's really, really important, and something that we don't generally do in our culture right now. I am 100% for natural burial, which in Idaho we don't really have any sort of option for that.
So what do you mean cremation, or not so much, or?
So it's what I mean by natural burial is returning the body back to the earth. So right now, when somebody is buried, they're usually, like, if you go to just a normal cemetery and have somebody buried in the cemetery, they're usually in, a casket, which is made out of non-natural materials,
Right.
unless you have like a pine one or something like that made. But then you're put in a cement container in the ground. And so your body is really, and if you've been embalmed, you're full of embalming fluids, and your body doesn't ever really touch ground, because you've been embalmed, you're in a casket, and then you're inside of a cement box. And really the only purpose for that cement box is for landscaping, so that so that the ground stays even and there's no sunken parts of the grass or the topsoil. And in a natural burial, you're either just wrapped in like a shroud, or you're in like a biodegradable box. Some people use cardboard or pine or something like that their loved ones and family members can decorate. I've seen a lot of really beautiful ones where, their loved ones have drawn on it, or have, written messages to them, and it's really beautiful. And then it's placed in the earth, and usually they're at a green burial site. There's no headstones or markers. The loved ones usually get like a GPS coordinate, so they know if they want to visit that person, they know where to go. But the land just looks like natural land. Like, you wouldn't know it from any other, forest or prairie or anything like that, because it returns back to the natural state of the earth. And then your body is going back to the natural elements of the earth, and it's feeding the earth that has fed you for the entirety of your life. So if I in my perfect world,
that seems way, 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 way better. And it's funny because not too long ago, like maybe a month ago, they sent this little card around in Idaho where you may be able to get some rights in Idaho for when you die, that your whole funeral will be paid for. So I don't usually respond to these things, but for whatever reason I did. And a man came over to visit me, and here we are sitting at the table planning my death. And he's telling me that, it'll probably cost you about $10,000 to die. Do you want to start paying for it right now? And in my mind, I'm like, wait, this makes no sense to me.
Right.
I'm going to start paying right now for me to die. Shouldn't it be free to die? And
that's the thing with don't even get me started on the funeral industry.
Well, I mean, because even when you're in a tribe, they used to put you on something to float on, and they'd start you on fire and set you out to the water. I'm like, that's perfect for me. Yeah. Let's just find someone, And I thought it just, the whole process just seemed not natural.
I think that there is a place in Colorado where you can do a funeral pyre that's legal there.
A what?
A funeral pyre. So you're burned outside in a pyre in nature, and then your ashes are returned to the earth. But I think that that's the only one in the United States that I'm aware of. There might be more, but it's a lot of it's like a greener way to do a cremation, because with cremation you have all of the all of the emissions that go into the atmosphere from the machines.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and so it's it has its own hiccups and stuff there. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways that we could improve those things. And I think, a lot of people feel like they have to pay that much money in order to have a nice funeral, but I've seen so many that are so beautiful and that you don't have to pay $10,000. You don't have to pay all that money for it. There's a lot of work that can be done in that space, for sure.
So tell me, when they do the natural births, I love this idea. I didn't know anything about it, so it's so cool that you do. Do they then label that land so that it's sacred land, so that it's not used for anything else or whatever?
Well, and that is the beautiful part about this whole concept. And there are places in the United States where this is already happening. We just don't really have any in Idaho yet.
And yet we have all this land.
Exactly. But once you have, there are rules, like you can't bury a body within so many, yards or from like running water or something like that. But once you have, several, like I think it's only like three or four people buried on a parcel of land, you cannot build on that land. And so it kind of works hand in hand with conservation. Like if we want to conserve our natural land, then why don't we start using it to facilitate these natural burials that really are only giving back to the earth, and also preventing people from buying it up and building on it, right? I would love to see more of that happening all over.
Well, maybe the younger generation will do this. Because I look at the weddings too. It's the same kind of thing for a wedding, right? They just have gotten so big and so big and so big and so expensive that everyone thinks you have to have this big thing. But now some of the most beautiful weddings are on a beach with just a little sundress and just family and those, so I think some of the young folks are kind of coming back to the simplicity and things that are kinder to nature. And Gaia, oh my, Gaia needs us to be more kind to her with the way we do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I hope that the younger generation move from that place of, less from their mind and more from their heart. I try to move that way in my own life, but I've never been one to really conform to the shoulds.
No.
but just what feels good to me. And what feels good to me is really getting back into touch with sort of the sacredness of those practices and the ritual aspect of those practices. So if we could, as a collective and as a community, come together and start really normalizing the sacredness of the death and dying process and the post-death process, and really bringing more just loving ritual into it, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and when you're talking about this, I'm just imagining a world where, okay, so let's bring that sacredness into the birth as well.
Yes.
And we kind of are. We're taking it more out of hospitals. There's a lot of beautiful places now where you can have a baby, where there's natural light, not fluorescence, where there's, pretty colors around that are warm and not a white wall.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's beautiful music, and you can do it in water. And so take that natural process with the birth. And then even, I've heard a lot of young people talking there. A lot of them are not so keen on even weddings because a lot of parents, there's been a huge divorce rate. And so I know many are like, I'm just never going to get married. But yet there's a real sacred contract when you find the right person to go through a ceremony.
Right.
Because you do ceremony all the time, just even with the cycles of the moon.
Yeah.
And so a marriage is an honoring of a cycle and a contract, which could be a very beautiful thing, and it doesn't have to be, so much is wrapped around money, right?
Right.
And materialism,
right.
and a photo for Instagram or wherever, make it look good.
Yeah.
And the death process to bring it all into more of a natural, simplistic.
Yeah.
It'd be beautiful. Is there anything more that you would like to share about what you do, or the times we are in. Anything you would like to add for people at this time in this new moon, in this cycle?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we just, in the Northern Hemisphere, we just moved through the autumn equinox into the autumn season, and we just transitioned into Libra, which is all about balance and finding balance in relation to the self and the other. So it's very much about all types of relationships, how we have relationships with other people, with our loved ones, with our partners, and also with ourself, and how we care for ourselves and how we nurture ourselves, and finding that really loving, peaceful, joyous, balanced place, and creating the boundaries to be able to facilitate that in a safe and nurturing way for yourself and for other people. And as we move into this season, it's coming up a lot for people. We held a circle last night, and those sort of boundaries and finding that balance in either, whether it's like the workspace or your spiritual practice or your physical practice or how you feed your body or whatever. That's really coming up a lot for people. And it can be challenging, kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning. It can feel very much like a death and rebirth for a lot of people, especially with where the astrology is right now. We have a lot of, we have Venus, who rules Libra, and she's in sort of like a very tense place with Saturn, who's the planet of reality, of the physical world, the third dimensional physical world. And so we have this love and this relationship and this nurturing energy, and how that kind of manifests for people is, we have these ideas, because Libra is air and governs the mind and the thought processes and how we think about things. And so we have these ideas. I want to feel love. I want to feel balanced. I want to feel at peace. I want my relationships to feel really good. I want everybody to be happy. And I want all of these things just to feel really nice and comfortable, and all move from a place of love, right? That's the essence of Libra energy. And then we have, right now we're having Saturn coming in, and Saturn is all about physical structure and form. And so Saturn comes in and says, okay, I hear what you're saying, and I hear all of these things that you want to create in the world, and I'm going to show you what's standing in your way of actually making them happen. I'm going to show you the shadow aspects that you need to work with, or I'm going to show you the physical things that you need to change in your life in order to make this vision of love and balance and peace that you have a reality in this third dimensional world, right? And that conversation for people can be very uncomfortable, because anytime that we're shown things that we have to change or that are not working, it means that we have to put forth the effort in order to change them. And it's that transition period, and that can feel very uncomfortable for people. So if you're out there and you feel that energy, it's totally normal, right? You are normal, and go with the flow.
And you have to walk through that doorway of fear, but you're just walking through it.
Yes, exactly. And if you'd like to do a meditation, I'd love to lead a meditation to kind of help balance those energies.
Well, perfect. And this has been so much fun. Can you tell everyone where they can get a hold of you, so that when we do the meditation, we can just disappear?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my website is ancientevolution.com, and you can find me on Facebook at Ancient Evolution and on Instagram at Kai Sayer. And if you're interested in learning more about the astrology or the moon cycles or anything like that, you can find me at Moonlight Sisterhood on Instagram and Facebook. So
Okay, beautiful. And so go ahead, lead us into this new moon meditation.
All right. So let's, everybody, just find yourself in a nice seated position with your feet flat on the floor and your spine nice and straight and stacked. You can rest your arms and your hands in your lap or place them on your knees, however feels comfortable for you. And let's all take a big deep breath in together. Inhaling and exhaling. And one more to center our body. Inhale and exhale. And one more to center our mind and spirit. Inhale and exhaling. Feeling your eyes closed if they're not closed already. Imagining your muscles in your body becoming a little bit heavier and more relaxed. Imagining that with every inhale that you take and every exhale, your mind begins to relax and come into a soft, neutral place. Noticing any thoughts that might come to the surface and just acknowledging them and then allowing them to move back out of your mind space again. Bringing your focus back to the breath, deep inhales and long, slow exhales. Now I'd like you to imagine, bring your awareness to the heart space. And imagine that this space right beneath the sternum, right where your physical heart is, your heart chakra, this space begins to glow. Imagining this light beginning to shine in a rose gold color. Bringing your awareness to this rose gold light in the center of your chest. And as you look at this light, it begins to expand, growing larger until it fills the entirety of your chest cavity. And with every breath in, it moves a little bit farther, moving up your neck, past your jaw, filling the entirety of your head and face, all the way up to the very crown at the tip of your head. And imagining with every inhale that this beautiful rose gold colored light begins to move down your body, filling the entirety of your abdomen, moving down, filling all of your organs, your bones, your muscles, moving down, filling your hips and your pelvic bowl. This energy moving down into your legs, filling the entirety of your legs, moving past your knees, filling your calves all the way down, filling the ankles and the feet, all the way to the very bottoms of the feet. And bringing your awareness back to the heart space, imagine this light moving up to the shoulders and cascading down the arms, filling the entirety of the arms, past the elbows, filling the forearms, the wrists, and the hands, all the way to the tips of the fingers. I'd like you to imagine that this rose gold colored light begins to shine out of the body through the crown at the top of the head, through the heart space at the front and the back of the chest, through the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. And this light shining out all around you, filling the entirety of the aura with this beautiful, loving, balancing light. And imagine that with your breath, as you inhale, feeling this light growing stronger. And as you exhale, imagine sending this light out into the world out into the room that you're in, filling the room with love and compassion and light. Inhaling, feeling that energy becoming stronger, and exhaling that energy out farther, filling the entirety of your city with this beautiful, loving, compassionate light. Inhaling in, feeling that light becoming stronger. Exhaling out, imagining that light expanding and filling the entirety of the country, reaching every part of the country, the earth, the sky, and all of the living beings that reside there. And as you inhale in, imagining that loving, compassionate, nurturing energy becoming stronger. And as you exhale out, imagine that light expanding out, filling the entirety of the world. Inhaling in this beautiful, loving energy, feeling it getting stronger, tapping into this beautiful energy that is a part of all of us, knowing that we're all powerful enough to send this beautiful, loving, compassionate energy out to the entire world, to the heart of Gaia herself, to the skies, to the universe, to every living creature, human, plant, animal, that calls this earth their home. And imagine that as you breathe in, this energy starts to slowly come back into your body, knowing that everywhere that it's reached, everywhere that it's touched, the energy of love and compassion and balance and peace and joy will stay in that place like a fingerprint, imprinted in that space. But calling your own energy back into your body, feeling it moving back from around the world into the country that you're in, breathing it back in to your city, back into your room, back into your aura. And notice how you feel. Notice how you feel expanded and full of love and compassion. How you can tap into that universal joy energy. And imagine that energy from the sky, from Source, begins to rain down onto the planet, onto you, like little droplets of white light. And this energy falling down into the ground, matching the energy that we all just sent out into the world, fortifying it, strengthening it, supporting the body of Gaia, supporting the body of you and of all living creatures on this planet. This cleansing, loving energy, feel it moving into your body, providing you with balance. Feel it moving into your energy systems, your chakras, and the meridian system, and the aura, opening and aligning and balancing the natural polarities of our energy and our physical body as we reside on this planet, and syncing us up with the energy of the earth. Breathing in deeply, inhaling and exhaling, feeling that energy solidify and stabilize and ground into the body. Deep breath in, slow breath out. And deep breath in, slow breath out. Now take your time in this space, and when you feel ready, bring movement back to your physical body, stretching your arms and legs, slowly opening the eyes, and breathing in deeply once more.
Thank you, Kai, and thank you everyone for listening. Namaste.
Oneness Talk Radio. Hip, fresh, fun. Tune in to an honest portal of positivity 24/7. Experience unique talk radio from all around the planet, perfectly mixed with music that enchants your soul. Discover Oneness moments as you relax into 3 to 5 minutes of divine inspiration. Claim your oneness today. OnenessTalkRadio.com. One world, one voice. Expand your vision.